part of the security mechanism for safe passage. All of these things are going to be tested in a line which does not require the construction of a power plant, but only of the transmission line. It has a long genesis. Again, do people have the stamina to really stick with it? It started with a study which showed the export potential. There were intergovernmental conferences and intergovernmental agreement. A council has been in place since 2007. The secretariat was put in place. Studies, feasibility updates, a lot of skepticism, all of it. Security studies have been completed. All of that has been completed. And we are now, post-Islamabad, the Pakistan elections, Pakistan has stepped up its leadership. As the main market, if the main leader, market leader is not interested in this project or is distracted, then I don't think this project goes away. So I think this alignment, building this alignment, and particularly I would emphasize the elections in the summer in Pakistan have really galvanized this, because Pakistan sees this as an opportunity both for energy, for political stability, and to change the discourse from just security-related concentration to other things like commerce. Costs, this is the thing, we have a $134 million gap. 6 months ago that was closer to $230 million. So a lot of people willing to finance it, particularly as a means of stabilizing and generating co-benefits for all countries. So I would just like to highlight some lessons. I think the sharpened political awareness, leadership is critical. Stable technical teams at an additional secretary level team is been constantly working. There are joint working group meetings by VC every week, and there are physical meetings every month, and then the Intergovernmental Council at the minister level meets every 6 months. So if you're ready for a sprint, then you find that the countries also put their A teams to work on something like this. Otherwise, if you say, oh, it'll come in the future, they'll put some warm body to work with it without the empowerment, and that's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy in itself. So contracts are being awarded. The pre-qualifications for the big contracts are underway. We expect actual groundbreaking late in the third quarter, fourth quarter of this year. And various funding mechanisms, political support umbrellas are being created. So I just want to then quickly just add to Nitya's thing on why the India-Pakistan, it'll just take me 2 minutes, don't want to overstay, is that, if one can construct something with those 4 countries with weak capacity and a variety of political situations, surely with a certain amount of attention, the India-Pakistan transmission line, which is really quite a short one, should be able to be done with something called political will. It doesn't take very much more than that. There's not a lot of money to at least get some confidence building going around this. Even though India is short, why is it of interest? Critical points. 230,000 megawatts. All countries around India have about 35,000 megawatts between all of them. So I mean, this, just a small gesture by India won't be missed. Be neither here nor there, and it'll probably be good business. Particularly if you look at the plant load factor, which shows how much of the plant capacity in India is actually being utilized. It has actually dipped down to something like 69% for a variety of reasons. And the spot trading market, which is now trading about 11%, I'll just go to the next. The spot prices seldom go above 5 or 6 rupees per unit, and more capacity is being added. Now this is just a picture from the exchange, and it'll show you as of yesterday, the average market clearing price was under 3 rupees per unit. It ranged from something like 404 rupees 24 paisa down to 1 rupee something. So again, it gives you a sense of what are the opportunities in the markets if the markets could be connected. So these are just some parting thoughts, is that because it's a binding constraint to everyone, it gets far more attention than others. Again, I'm not a security expert, but just from all our discussions, even with the security apparatus, people seem a little bit more comfortable with electrons going across the border than people or goods. Now, you would know better why, but it seems to be ripe, and it's a high-value impact. So can it be used for confident building? Can it be used in addition to the resource? I think that the amount of know-how in different, Nitya spoke about the coal know-how. In addition to that, the depth of the financing markets, the electricity trading market in India. I think the ability of this knowledge, know-how, and joint ventures to actually just proliferate is extraordinary. So and it builds confidence because other things are happening at the same time, and I'll just sort of close with that, but thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Chair, my co-panelists, ladies and gentlemen. It is a privilege to be here and share my views. In matter of trade, be it goods or services, I believe, and this was also supplemented by the comments, that interdependence is a better virtue than independence. For a variety of reasons, sometimes you need emergency exchanges, complementaries are there, and then optimizing your resources. Because resources are not equally, distributed, and we have different kind of energy mix, different kind of resources. So if we integrate, perhaps we'd be able to better utilize our energy resources, which are for the long-term, energy security and all that issues of global warming and all. How best we can use our energy. My discussions will be mostly on electricity. For trade in electricity, the first requisite is adequate transmission interconnection. If I look at India itself, about 2 decades back, we were mostly organizing our energy in the regional terms. There were 5 electricity regions. Most of them were independently getting, operated, and states were also not interconnected. After a while, in 1991, one important decision was taken that there will be a central transmission utility which will work towards inter-regional interconnection, and Power Grid was formed. After that, it was, lot of exchanges started happening, not within the region, intra-region, but also inter-region. And it was proportional to how you are building the capacity, transmission capacity. Today, India is one nation, one grid. All 5 electricity regions are connected. Of course, the southern region was connected very recently. But this is a one huge grid, and lot of trade takes place between regions. One more thing which was very critical for Indian market to grow was when Power Trading Corporation, the trading organization, was formed sometimes in 2000, 2001. And there were many naysayers, and they said that India is, deficit in electricity. Where is energy to trade? Where is the electricity to trade? But you will be surprised, because there are different kind of resources. Some part of the country is having more thermal, somewhere more hydro, and again seasonal variations are there, daily variations in demand are there. And to surprise of many who believed that there will be no trade, no power market started growing very fast. And one good thing happened, market dynamics changed after that. Because earlier it was mostly government determined prices. Once the market came, it was market determined prices. And there was an independent regulator who was looking at prices. So it changed the whole scenario. Indian power market, or Indian power sector, I would say, became competitive. Now even all states, they procure power competitively. And the one good point again happened, that a lot of private investment came in the market. Earlier, about a decade back, there was about 10% of private investment, and mostly state-owned utilities. After this, now it is almost 1/3 is private investment, private generators. 75 gigawatt of capacity today is with the private, rest of it with the state and center. Now, because of this, there is a downward pressure in the market, and as Mr. Jahir has shown what the prices are, these are sometimes less than what it was 5 years back because of these complementaries and all. Now, examples have been shown about India, Bhutan, India, Nepal, and of course India, Bangladesh. India, Sri Lanka, India, Pakistan, again the discussions are going on for decades. We have not been able to, freeze that we have to build a network, because that is the first step one has to take. One small comment I would make, that short-term market prices should not be the decisive factor for interconnection. It's for the long term, because your investment is for the next 25 years. So how you are going to use your infrastructure is very important. Today the short-term prices are, what you see in the range of 3, 4, 5. Tomorrow it can change. So it is always good that you link your transmission with a long-term tie-up as well. And there are, with traders, developers, private entities, that the two countries can come together and have a long-term tie-up, which will, not give you price shocks and all. Now, what is required? I believe political will is the only thing which is required. India, Bangladesh, about 2010, I believe, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina Wajid visited India, and both Prime Ministers agreed that we will build this interconnection between India and Bangladesh. So technical or commercial, that was not the barrier. It was most political will. And once the decision was taken at the highest level, it started happening. And I was told that from the letter of award, it took 2 years to complete this network. And here, what happened that because of grid interconnection, sometimes there are concerns, although today it is not a concern for, should not be a concern for neighboring countries. But a few years back, Indian grid was quite unstable, I would say. Frequency or voltage variations were too high. So many of the neighboring countries felt that because of these disturbances, their own grid will get impacted. That is not the case, but even then, Bangladesh went for a HVDC interconnection. The advantage is that you are insulating one grid from the other, and you can have a controlled exchange between the two countries. And this is what happened. Bangladesh built on their side a HVDC interconnection. They invested almost 90% of that investment. For the Indian portion, India invested for its network, which was about 10% of the cost. The rest was borne by Bangladesh. Bangladesh also tied up with two agencies in India, one government agency for 50% of the trade and another with private. And they are kind of long-term arrangement. And it was also told that almost 500 megawatt of power, not all the time, but it is getting exchanged. So, and the range, I'm told, I'm not, it's a ballpark figure that about $150 million of investment took place. Now, if you look at India, Pakistan, then again, the network is not very, large. You have to have maybe 40, 50 kilometers of transmission interconnection. And if Pakistan can insulate its grid by having HVDC on its side and can have this interconnection, and as it was told that we have 233 gigawatt and different time, different seasonal variations. So there could be a possibility. And once you enter into a long-term arrangement of power purchase, then that power is flowing to you. So you are not, dependent on the, sometimes there is zero flow and sometimes it can be constant flow throughout. So the case is that governments, and again, one more point. When you build a transmission, you feel, well, how it will be used. Even in case of India, Nepal, when the line was being built, that everybody was trying to establish techno-commercial. Sometimes it so happened that if you build the network, say, a road, then the traffic start flowing. I mean, but if you realize that the first day the traffic will start, perhaps it is not possible. But these are large and long-term investment. So governments have to come forward instead of just looking at private or some utilities to take the entire burden on themselves and see how the trade will happen. So initial push has to be given by the governments. So technical and commercial issues are not important. And one last point before I close. There are again discussions about bilateral versus multilateral, or that we should have a SARC grid. Now, to tell you very frankly, already there is a grid. India, Bhutan is connected, India, Bangladesh is connected, and India, Nepal is connected. And they are all bilateral interconnections. It is all a matter of passage. You push energy somewhere and it is taken out somewhere. It is not that you have to build a line from Nepal to Pakistan to get the energy. This is all, everybody is pumping in energy from everywhere and you are drawing from somewhere. So you need not to specifically build a line from Nepal to Pakistan. Rather, whatever is the Indian grid, you have to use the willing to get your power. That is possible. Of course, there may be some strengthening of the network which is required. So instead of talking that first there has to be a SARC regional grid, then only trade will take place, I think the first step is to start with bilateral trade, get the confidence and build and make it a SARC grid. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Praveer.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to congratulate both the presenters for their excellent presentation. Nithya in particular, I don't know whether it is coming up as a paper or as a presentation, but itself, the presentation PowerPoint slides, it itself indicates that it's a good materials he collected. But some of the queries that I have on the paper, first of all, when we talk about the bilateral power exchange between India and Pakistan, first question always will come to my mind that why should I give power to Pakistan or any other country in my neighbor? Is that very much required when we have a tremendous amount of deficit inside the country? Second point comes that if my power, which I produce with this taxpayers' money, it goes to a foreign country, and that makes their industry internationally competitive and competing out our product globally, for example, sports goods or pharmaceutical products or anything, then those points comes very much often in our mind. But globally, what we see in some other studies, and to a little bit deviating from the discussion in Selim Ryan, his computable general equilibrium modeling, we see that there are win-win gains. We lose somewhere, we gain in somewhere, and that's why Nithya perhaps said there's complementarities. He didn't extend what sort of and today's discussion concerned in 90s, but not now, because from a surplus state, it has come down to a deficit country. That's why they're looking for a power import. Now, I believe that he should give us clear in his presentation what kind of complementary infrastructure. There are a couple of good points could be. So now, to make it, if I take from your point that it has to be India-Pakistan trade power exchange, then major point would be that allowing the FDI to go. Now, if you come to Pakistan, about 200 kilometers from the maps he presented, there are 4 refineries coming up. One is 4 refineries already. One by at Panipat, one at Mathura, one done by the Mittal at Bhatinda, another by BPCL with Oman in Bina. These 4 are going on, running, and another one is coming up in Rajasthan. It's called Crane Energy. So all 5 energies in together is giving a 40 and 50 million ton capacity of the refineries. And uploading point of the crude is the nearest port is Jamnagar. Now, in his presentation, he talked about the South Asian countries, except India, no one invested on LNG terminals, which is the futuristic power import, energy import infrastructure. Now, the nearest one for us would be the Dahej, which is in Gujarat. So there comes, FDI requirement that why Pakistan should allow an FDI from India, particularly in terms of investment in the refineries, downstream products, there are opportunities, and the services. Service is a good example. If you look at the Delhi city, is the IGL, which provides this liquefied natural gas, LNG. So they have a tremendous amount of expertise with the Delhi government. That can be extended to Pakistan, which could be used for the vehicle movement in Lahore or in Karachi, where the density is very high, and so also the pollution. So there are, I think, complementarities of infrastructure from that services are very high, very much high potential. I think those are important. And finally, I have some queries. Couple of things that doesn't make any sense to me. The energy demand is likely to grow by 3 times without any citation, and what sort of 40% of people living without access of the populations. Point we understood that 60% is having access to electricity, but is it data very recent, or I don't get any clue. Second, if we look for more into the bilateral initiative energy, that might undermine the regional initiatives that we have, and which are particularly in South Asian context when you talk about, and some of the regional pipelines like IPI, TAPI, or whatever is coming up. So these are the things he has to look into it when he converts it in a paper. And still I'll be very much looking into if Nithya or anyone from us could give us a very quantitative study. In general concept, yes, power export from one country to another country will help the deficient country. That's fine, but we need going very nitty-gritty with a very detailed discussion that import of power from India to Pakistan or any other country, how much is going to help Pakistan industries globally for any of the industries. We should look for a study, and I think NITA should take it the lead. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ray.
Thank you, Chair. I would restrict my points to about 3-4 comments on the two presentations. Firstly, on the presentation made by Mr. Nityanand, he has talked about the possibility of trading between India and Pakistan, and in particular in petroleum and natural gas. Now, what we need to do is really look at, going back to in fact, the point made by Probir, that what is the consumption of fuel by each of the countries? And is there a surplus in India that we can export to Pakistan, and the other way around? What would be the basis for the trade? The first thing to note is that both, as Mr. Nitin has also noted, that both countries are in fact have shortages. Be it in oil, be it in natural gas, be it in coal, be it in hydro. Pakistan, in fact, doesn't, and a little bit of nuclear energy in both countries. India has a bit of renewables, but Pakistan doesn't have that. So if you look at the entire energy basket, where is the scope for each of these countries to trade with other if we don't have a surplus that we can generate? Incidentally, India in fact has imported both naphtha and natural gas from Pakistan. In the year 2010-11, the highest import of naphtha from by India was from Pakistan, which was about 721,000 tons. And very little natural gas was imported also from Pakistan in the same year. So one is this: where is the surplus, where is the deficit? Secondly, the role of the pipelines and all the things that have been discussed. One very important player in this whole region is China, and not enough has been mentioned about China. Though the presentation has, in fact, Mr. Zahir's presentation in CASA did mention about the route of the Turkmenistan-China route. China is in fact the largest importer of everything, all of these commodities from the rest of the world, and the role of China in this whole trade would play a very important role, and this has to be factored in, that how is, how with the trade between the